Good afternoon. Good afternoon, my villagers. I tell you, it's just a blessing to be back with you today. I'm always thrilled when I come on. I just want to say that indeed you all bless me every morning. I wake up and think about you, but particularly when I start toward the studio and think about what you're doing and how you support me, and I'm just so pleased. I want to give thanks right now to my crew, the team that helped me keep this thing together. I want to thank Sheila, my producer. I do want to thank my advisor, Juanita. I thank my promo crew, Alwa, Elijah, Harleem, I'm sorry, and Chastity. My engineer, King Norm, he keeps it real. Of course, I'm Ruby Williams Shivers. You all know me. I'm your unapologetic amateur, looking for experts in Africanism. Now, I personalize this title because when I say I'm an unapologetic amateur, that means I do not have the skills, the expertise to be a part of what I conceptualize as a specialized unit consisting of experts that have studied in depth the cause, effect, and solutions for what ails us. See, I am an expert in living black. Oh, I live black every day. Get up in the morning and my blackness conforms me to every corner. On every corner. It's like racism here, racism there, and racism everywhere. Now, that's living black. But I'm not an expert in black living. That's a cat of another color. See, black living, to be an expert in black living, means you have to not only live black, but know the reality of being black in all its ramifications. And that's just a little above my pay grade, so that's why I have this podcast to bring in those experts who can make that happen. So now I hope I clarify that, because sometimes people just kind of get misunderstood. They may be misunderstood of the title. Now, I've been given a lot of flowers lately, I got to tell you, and I'm so appreciative. And I'm not just referring to the plant. I mean accolades, and I don't know what that forebodes, but I'm going to just smell them and enjoy them. Thank God for my buddies. I call them my kings, Terry and Ron, who wrote a poem specifically for me. Got to watch them on their podcast, Poetically Spoken Word, or Poetically Speaking. It's always interesting. And they come on Thursday and Sunday, so you catch them. And, of course, my queens, my sisters, Michelle and Sabrina. They gave me some beautiful flowers, and they have a podcast called SIT, Sisters Inspiring Transformation. Always what the village need. You check them out also, okay? See, God is good all the time, and all the time God is good. Now, I need to remind, as a matter of fact, I don't need to remind you villagers that some serious stuff is going on in the neighborhood, which leaves me in a serious quandary. Now, that's a word my parents used when they were trying to decide between one white boss and another white boss. See, I'm from the segregated South, y'all. And if you ask me, it seems that we're being forced to decide between white bosses again. So that word is very apropos for me today, because I'm not sure if what's on the agenda now, is it not going to be better than where we were before? See, that's the quandary. We as African Americans have never been where we should be. It feels as though we are between a rock and a hard place. That's another expression that my parents used. Maybe it's a little more current than the quandary, but most appropriate to describe our current state of affairs. Because, see, what the Orange Man and his minions, the mega crew, are doing to the country and the world may be putting us in a position, the African Americans that is, to look beyond our immediate circumstances and really see what ails us, the real depth of our situation. See, I have been trying to explain through this podcast that we, the African American community, needs a more scientific approach to how we should perceive ourselves. Because I contend that until we see ourselves as a damaged people, now that was supposed to be my fifth book, Damaged Goods Made in America, but I changed it to the latest book. But until we see ourselves as damaged people, we'll never recapture the greatness in us. See, we've got to know through expert intervention who we really are, and opposed to who we've been told to think we are. There's a difference. And it may just be God has sent us a ram in the bush that will force us to look at ourselves from a different guidepost. See, because when I used the title for this podcast, Unapologetic Amateur, Looking for Experts in Africanism, that was deliberate and intentional. We need guidance. You see, because the vast majority of us do not see ourselves beyond our immediate circumstances. And our immediate circumstances place us behind everyone else. We're behind in wealth, we're behind in health, and we're behind in education. Oh, I hear you out there now, blaming yourselves. Don't do it. You see, I wrote a book about the negative image some of us have about ourselves. Some of our common expressions are, we don't stick together. We are worst enemies. We're like crabs in the barrel. Now, I'm not blaming anyone for those sentiments because I'm convinced, as Maya Angelou said, if you knew better, you would do better. And if you have not been thoroughly treated, how would you know better? Now, we've been studied. Of course, we have been studied. Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Jeffries, Dr. Ben, I could go on. And we have been diagnosed. You know, Dr. Cress Wilson, Dr. Joy DeGraw, and others. But there has never been anyone, to my knowledge, presenting a cure. So maybe I'm praying that this dilemma we find ourselves in today will serve as the lightning rod to wake our experts up to see that we need the same kind of concentration, the same level of specificity as any other major catastrophe that had challenged our very humanity. And you know, now, excuse me? Oh, I just heard someone in my ear saying other folks have been through trauma, been through slavery. Our Jewish friends went through a Holocaust. Our Japanese friend went through encampment. Some of our other friends went through catastrophes. They are doing quite well. Why aren't we? Well, I'm glad you asked. Yes, they were enslaved, as we were, but what makes ours different, we were stripped. Stripped of what, you ask? Oh, I'm so glad you're all asking these questions. Well, the attempt was to strip us of our humanity. They came close now. We were stripped, however, of our heritage, our language, our history, our religion, our culture, our dignity. You know? So we were seriously stripped. Thus, when everyone else was freed, because they were left intact. They maintained their religion. They maintained their language. They maintained their culture. Does that make sense? That they would be in better position to regain normalcy. In addition, unlike other groups, we were continuously harassed and denied opportunities. Now, we are mighty people, mind you, but not infallible. You see, there's only one God, and none of us is that one God. We were and still are extraordinary human beings, but not indestructible. And once we recognize and fully understand the enormity and the abnormality of our situation, we will demand a scientific, in-depth study of our unique situation. The same as this society, demands attention to any other serious catastrophe, whether it's the cure for cancer or this special virus that came through in 2020. See, as I declare, I am the amateur in this situation. But I know that God has put me here to awaken the experts to concentrate on this particular malady. So we are going to continue to express these sentiments to whomever will listen. Hey, but believe me, hey, this afternoon is great though. I have a special guest, of course. He's been here before, but he's always special because he's doing special things. He is the quintessential man of the hour. Daryl has connection with Africa. He's been in and out of Africa more time than I've been in and out of Plainfield. Now, don't get it twisted. Not as a visitor, but as an ambassador. You know my allegiance to Africa. Now, my homeland is real. And this young man, my cousin, has been affiliated with our homeland for over how many years, Daryl? Can't even
Um,
count, huh?
it's been, oh wow,
Wow, long time. I'm gonna let you tell us about that.
30
30
years.
years. You know, you've been recently awarded some accolades, and I'm gonna let you talk about that. And I'm going to let you fill us in on the how, the why, and the when the connection began in Africa. And in such a serious way with our family in Africa, we are just pleased to know that you keep in touch. Now, you're working with young people, and of course, I'm going to have you bring your team in the future after my homeschool youngsters debut their program on the 28th. I'm bringing some youngsters in, and we're going to debut a program for them on the 28th. But I'm going to let you talk about what you're doing over there. I'll tell you more about that. Now, Daryl, I understand you're graduating next month from King University. I want you to tell us about that. You just busy. Well, my brother, give us just an overview of what you're doing, who you are, Africa, how you got involved. Welcome, my brother. See, I'm supposed to know how to connect this. Let me just do this. Now, Ron, oh, I see what it is. I put it here. I'll get it sooner or later. That's what happens when I don't have my producer here. See how missed she is? But I
Oh,
tell you,
no
Norm
worries,
takes
no
over. He
worries.
takes over. Okay, Daryl, again, welcome, 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 my brother. It is always a pleasure to see you and always a pleasure to read about you because you're doing some great stuff.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me. And in that opening dialogue, I was moved by the opening dialogue
Thank
because
you.
I think you summed up the status of African Americans in this country so
Mm-hmm.
well, and not only giving the history, but also giving um, the solution in the sense of that we need a
Yeah,
solution.
definitely.
That we just can't harp on the fact that there's a problem, but we
Mm-hmm.
need a solution.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my name is Daryl Batts. I'm from Carteret, New Jersey.
Got a rat,
Um,
got a rat.
that's right, Carteret.
Well, so was my
And
husband from Carteret. That's why I'm saying.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going to Africa now for over 30 years.
Okay.
And about 16 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I went with our current, let me back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Our organization is OEATA International, and we connect students from around the world, that they may be able to talk with one another, sharing experiences, culture, food, businesses is in their own country.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that started about 15 years ago. Our CEO and myself, we went to Ghana, and we had such a marvelous time. And during that time, while we were in Ghana, we said, how can we know we can't charter planes and bring people over. It's too expensive, but
Mm-hmm.
there must be a way that we can, um, allow people to experience the culture and allow people to see the truth for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Because growing up in the school system, like I grew up in Carteret, um, the history books, were completely inaccurate.
Sounds
The
familiar.
news that we saw on TV
Mm-hmm.
was not doing Africa justice. So we wanted our youth to be able to see the true Africa. So make a long story short, we came home and we were sitting in a conference room with video conferencing equipment, and we sat down and said, "Wait a minute, we can do video conferencing. It's the next best thing to being there. If you can't be
Right.
there, we'll be able to see each other face to face."
Mm-hmm.
We wrote the CEO of Polycom at the time, and within a week we received a letter back, and he pledged over $300,000 worth of equipment in order to facilitate connecting students from around the world with Africa. And that was for what we've been doing this for the last 15 years. We've connected over a half a million students
My word, you're all ahead
from
of
around
them.
the world.
Mm.
I mean, it's been amazing because to see people's eyes open up when they're speaking to students from Africa and dispelling all those myths
Yes.
and misconceptions that we see on TV. And I
Mm-hmm.
always tell the kids, I grew up with Sally Struthers, and
Mm.
she did those commercials. And all those commercials, all the little African children were all around her. They had flies, and they all had um, hardly any clothes on, and
Right.
and she was begging for food,
Mm-hmm.
for them. And so that's how I pictured Africans.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I tell the students when I grew up to call me an African, I was insulted
Mm-hmm.
because I associated what I saw on television with being an African, and I didn't want to be that.
Right. Right.
So we don't want
Association.
students today to grow up believing that that's the true Africa. So what's the best way for them to see it? No, not read it in a book, not hear it on the news, but get it from, as they say, the horse's mouth. And
Exactly.
that's something that my mother used to say, growing up, you need
Right.
to get it from the
The
horse's
horse's mouth.
mouth, not from past from
Yeah.
mouth to mouth, but get it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's an interesting introduction because many times I would say I know I've had the experience. I've been to Africa a couple of 3 or 4 times, and each time it was it was just an experience that I can't even explain. I know our first time over there, I just had to kiss the ground because
Mhm.
it brought back the memories of the little you had learned about from here. Uh, Outside of what the misconception, though, if for those of us who really knew that there was another Africa other than what we had seen or read from the books over here, it was just it was just really something to go over there and experience. It's a visceral type of feeling when you're over there that you know that you're back where you came from, you know, and the beauty of it. Because see, like you say, that's a misconception too. Africa is the most beautiful country that I've ever been, continent that I've ever been in. I mean, y'all, the beautiful waters, the beautiful lakes, the beautiful uh, mountains, and just the scenery, the vegetation. It's just beauty. And I know I was in Senegal, and it was called a Pink Lake, and I just was fascinated because I have having that was my no, that was not my first, that was second African visit. But the misinformation that you hear before you even get there, and then to go there and see that this is so different. But I am so glad that you're doing what you're doing. So now, having said that, I know I've seen that you have been involved with the organization you just spoke of. So give us some more information about that. And you recently was anointed the ambassador. So tell us about that.
Yes. Well, to the organization, my organization, OEI International,
Mm-hmm.
first we've partnered with Kane University.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and with Kane University, we started an initiative called the Kane OEIDA Global Ambassadors Program.
Mm-hmm.
Through this program, we are creating ambassadors here in the United States to be able to represent themselves. And not only that, but to learn about other cultures and other places.
Right.
And it's interesting with things that are happening in the world today, it's taking on like a new uh, a new frontier. And what's
Mhm.
happening is we begin to see, okay, we need to teach our students that the world is bigger than just the United States.
Exactly.
That you have an option in your future.
Hmm.
That you do not have to remain in the United States. Like this does not have to be your home if you choose not to. So
Exactly.
what we want to do is we want to begin to educate students on, the continent of Africa,
Hmm.
different places, the businesses in Africa, how are the economics of different places in Africa, so that they can see
They have
that
options.
I mean, because we don't know where this is going
Exactly.
with this situation here.
Yeah. But we do see
And
what the beginning of it is. Don't know where it's
right.
going,
And
but we know
so
what the beginning
we
is.
want we want not only students, but people to have the opportunity to say, you know what? I no longer want to live in the United States.
Hmm.
I've heard about, I've talked about, I've seen, I may want to go to Ghana, let's
Yeah.
say,
Hmm.
and live, or different countries throughout Africa. But you can't, we don't want people making just blind decisions, but we want to be able to
Have
introduce
options.
the people
Exactly.
in the lands.
And you know,
So,
there are mother those. I don't want to cut you off, but those
oh no,
countries, some of those countries in Africa, and I know Ghana for real, provided dual citizenship. I mean, citizenship
yes,
there, and we obviously got citizenship here. So we would be allowed to have dual citizenship in some of those countries, and even so, I with what we have in front of us now with this administration, you never know, as you said, what position we'll find ourselves in that would allow us or force us to make other choices. And if we
right,
got those choices, or we know that we have those choices, it would be easier. One of the things I would suggest that we better keep our passports up to date.
yeah.
You know, things like that, that if there's, whatever might happen to us, we do have options. I know Ghana for years have always allowed us to do citizenship over there. And other place, I was going to ask you, what countries in Africa have you been to?
I personally have only been to three. I've been
Hmm.
to Ghana, I've been to Mali, and I've also been to Seychelles.
Okay.
Um, but now here's the other thing, but we've connected over 48 countries
Okay.
in Africa,
Hmm.
because one of the things that people may not realize is that the continent of Africa um, is completely divided
Hmm.
by countries. It's not many people don't travel from country to country like how here we travel from state to state, and so I may live in New Jersey, but I may visit California.
Hmm.
But it's very seldom that you find people that travel because these are countries.
Countries.
So it's very
Hmm.
seldom that you find people traveling around the continent of Africa. So
Hmm.
you can live in Ghana, and Ivory Coast is right next door.
Hmm.
And you know nothing about Ivory Coast. It's not taught in the schools.
Right.
So one of the things that we're, as far as the Global Village program, is that we're looking to begin to connect, or we've started connecting African countries.
Yes. Yes.
This because as much as our students may not know about the country, I mean the continent of Africa,
Hmm.
a lot of most of the countries don't know about one another.
Well,
So,
that's by
so
design. The colonization was did as much
absolutely
damage as slavery almost to us over here.
right,
They were totally colonized and they were separated and continue to
right,
be separated from
exactly,
each other. And I think there's some progressive minds. Well, I can't say that because there was always progressive minds. It just they was assassinated or whatever. But they read a lot about folks in Africa now who's very progressive and trying to connect the dots as you were talking about, connect the
right,
country because they know the advantage of it, but they know the they have been
right,
made to if if you have been under the gun or have been under the colonization of countries that have colonize you, and they're not letting their feet off your neck. You know, the same as over here. We, as African people in this country, should be in much. We build the country. We worked
Right.
freely for the country. We are the only ones who have not gotten any kind of reparation. See, because I
Right.
contend that we got reparation, we wouldn't be have to worry about the affirmative action, the
Right.
DEI, and all those other programs that really benefited white women, even so more than us.
Right.
But with what
Absolutely.
we did get from them, we deserve everything because we not
Right.
got our reparation. We got our reparation, then we would be able to stand more toe to toe with everyone else who have been under the gun, and maybe they have now arisen and succeeded. And we wonder, well, why don't we? Because we have never even been given the advantage of what other folks have been given. And once
Right.
we know that, we'll stop pointing fingers at ourselves, you
Right.
know.
Because this is so the thing that we have to realize that the situation we're in is so systematic,
Yeah.
um, that you have think tanks that are sitting around coming up with ways in which um, to tear down all
Yes.
that has been built up, all that we've built up. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you see this administration
Mm-hmm.
coming in and
Right.
wanting to take away, history,
Yes.
wanting to take away, Head Start,
Mm-hmm.
um, and take away all these different programs and completely try to take us back,
Yes.
to a time where, I mean, I don't even know where they're trying to take us back to, but,
Take us back to slavery.
because
Now I wonder why is that though? What is it? What's that about, Dara? You think what is it that will make one group of people? And I don't mean well. I don't even want to go there trying to qualify. I don't mean everybody. I don't have to say that. One of our big fault is that we have to qualify everything we say about folk.
right,
If I say white folks, I couldn't mean all white folks because we know
right,
John. We read about John Brown. We know he was one of the ones that helped us. We know about the kids who went down to Mississippi and was killed. We know about those who have helped us. So when I use the term, I don't have to qualify it because when they use
right,
the term against us, they never qualify. They
right,
just put us all in the same bag. So we got to start learning how to verbalize, and we got to learn how to create our narrative because who create the narrative control the narrative. And if we are
right,
going to allow us to be governed by the narrative that they have created around us, we'll always be less than. We know better. We know that
right,
if we study history, we realize the reason that we got all this against us because people are jealous of who we were. We
right,
just don't know quite who we were. But if we're
right,
going to look back at our history, we have to know that we're God's creation. First of all, everyone else came from us. You know, things like that is got other folks crazy. You know, they know our what we do. They know we invented things. They know we created. We know we build the
absolutely,
pyramids. They know we mathematics. They know languages came from. So they understand all that probably better than we do. So they are trying so hard not to have any kind of equation around who they are and who we are. It just it's crazy, but it's at a point now where we got to be very serious because that
yes,
man in the White House is not playing.
yeah, and we're in a place and time where we have to educate our children.
Yes, yes.
Um, Even if our kids are going to public school,
Mhm.
um, even if they take out African American history,
Mhm.
it does not mean they don't control African American history.
Right.
Then that means we have to continue teaching it to our
Exactly.
kids.
Well, Dara,
That
you know what I yeah,
responsibility,
good. Good. I'm glad
yeah,
you said that because I know
yeah,
you've been doing that with the kids that you deal with from Africa and here. But I just
absolutely,
recently, and I got to give credit where credit is due. I was listening to that crazy governor of Florida, DeSantis, and when he made the statement that they taught us skills and things, brought us over here. My sister Lula, she's with the ancestors now, but she's always been very diligent in teaching uh, homeschooling the kids around
right.
us, our
Hmm.
little nephews and nieces and grands and that. So what I did when I heard him make that statement, it encouraged me to establish a homeschool within our home.
Right,
Because we should teach our children from home before they even leave home of who they are.
exactly.
That way they will, when they go out and confront a person like DeSantis, they'll know he's a liar. So what we did is we established a homeschool called Williams ACAP. This means the ACAP is Acubalon Academy, Cultural Academy of Plainfield. And we bring a group of our family members, about 9 of them, my grands and nephews and nieces. And what we do, we're teaching them their history, because that's what
Right.
it should be taught from home. Now, what
Right.
I've done is I have put together, the podcast here will be having them come on once a month, the last Monday of each month, to explain and express to folks across the board what they have learned about themselves. Now, you know I'm going to be reaching out to you because I would like to interplay between your students that you're with and them, but we'll talk about that later. But that is what
Absolutely.
we are trying to do here. We are trying to create the avenue by which they will learn their history before they even leave the house.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, and I know for a lot of parents, they're not able to do things on a large scale,
Right.
but any scale that
Yeah.
we can teach our own children
Exactly. That's a
about their
small scale.
history,
That's right. And right in the house.
anything, whether it
Mm-hmm.
be games,
Yeah.
kids like to play games. We start buying African American history games.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
the conversation, what
Mm-hmm.
we watch,
Mm-hmm.
these things that we need to give our children the exposure
Yeah.
as to who they are. They
Mm-hmm.
need to learn that, okay, I go to school and I learn that Christopher Columbus, they say he's discovered America. Um, but I also need to learn the truth about
Yeah.
that. And they're not going to teach that to me in school.
Right.
The Even in Ghana, these students in Ghana um, are not taught. They're still taught for the primarily. They're still taught a British
Yeah.
curriculum.
Sure.
So when we expose them to the truths of like slavery,
Mm-hmm.
they're amazed because even to this day, they believe that when people left Africa, that they went to a better life
Yes.
than that they had. A
That was the
professor told me
lie. Mm-hmm.
something. A professor told me something profound one time, and this is when I first started going to Ghana. And he said he was at a university, and he said I could put a slave ship in the middle of this campus, and by noon it would be filled.
Mm-hmm.
And he was saying because they don't understand what happened. They don't understand the Middle Passage. They
No.
don't understand the conditions in which the Africans were subjected to when they went to all the different the
Right.
Americas,
Yeah.
all the
Been
different
fed the
places.
lies. Been fed the lies that when we left there, we did it on our own. That was the one lie. The other lie was that we sold each other.
Right,
There was misinformation, and most of it was purposely done. Some of it was done out of ignorance. So when we begin to tell our own people that we did that, that's
right,
like saying all of us were Clarence Thomas. We know that there's outliers in every situation. There are folks who will do that, but we were not. Our people were not the only one that betrayed us in whatever way they want
right,
to say. The Jewish people had folks who were, betraying them, or any other people who were in bondage. But to the extent that the majority of us was captive of the game that they were playing, slavery,
mm,
and once that happened, they began to they even started before they got here, controlling the narrative around who we are, why we were where we are, and actually who we were not. But they understood clearly who we were, the best of everything. And that is what frightened them now, that they know giving us a
right,
half a chance. And we haven't been given a chance and still outdistance many of them in many ways. So all of that got to be put back into the brain of our people that will wash the brainwashing. And my good friend said, don't call it brainwashing, call it brain dirtying. They dirtied our
right.
brain. And in dirtying your
Right.
brain, you got to clean your brain. You cleanse it in a way that we are doing, hopefully, here now. Because this doesn't come naturally. How would you know that? How would you know that there's a system that has been diabolic and create
Right.
this type of thing against us? You just wouldn't necessarily believe that a human being would do that. But that was what we got to really express to our people, that, yeah, we've been had. But
Right. And one of the I would say, what like visiting the slave dungeons.
mm-hmm,
One of the most I don't know, it's just horrible things that I've seen is that on top of the women's at the Elmina slave dungeon,
mm-hmm,
on top of the women's dungeon,
mm-hmm.
um, there's a church.
Hey, isn't that something?
Um, and they use religion
Mm-hmm.
um, in order to justify what they were doing. They because a lot of times, oftentimes, people want to say that, oh, it's white man's religion.
Oh no,
No,
please.
it's white man's version
Virgin.
or it's white man's distortion
Mm-hmm.
of religion. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you look in the Bible, Europe is not mentioned in the Old Testament not one time.
No. Yeah.
What happened? Paul had to take the gospel
Mm-hmm.
to the different places in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't where, like, these Europeans brought the gospel
No.
to Africa.
No.
We know that the cradle of civilization, where
Mm-hmm.
God chose to place the Garden of Eden,
Yeah.
was in Africa.
And
So
every.
we knew God,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly. And what is so interesting about that is um, the well, as a Christian, they would always refer to Christianity as a white man's religion. I know back
Right,
in the 60s, that's when it was very prevalent about where we were going to go as African people. We decided to go Muslim or state Christianity. I knew without knowing, I knew there was something mysteriously serious about these religion being given to people who didn't create anything. So I knew it
right,
had to come from somewhere. I didn't know where, but
right,
I maintained my Christianity because I know if I were to go to another religion like Islam, they didn't know where that came from either. They could only surmise. I learned that both these was taken over by the Christianity had a version of Christianity,
right,
the Europeans, and the Arabs had a version of Islam.
right.
And if we go way back to our own religion, we're gonna find a whole different set of what it
Exactly.
is. And Christianity, my pastor, I'm so pleased with him. He's so an advanced and erudite type of Afrocentric person that when he came in about 3 or 4 years ago, he taught us, and I knew all along, but I mean most of the congregation taught that the Christianity religion came out of Egypt, like you say, out of
Mm,
Egypt, were born and birthed there, because it just the European came over and co-opted. But that's where it came from. Just as with the Islamic religion, out of Africa, and the Arabs went and co-opted
right,
that. So we have to understand from that perspective as African people, and that's why it's so important, not only for our children to know their history, we got to get deeper in us knowing our history because it's important. We use the phrase sometimes, well, we are not monolithic people, want to say that we think separately. We shouldn't. Maybe we should be more monolithic until we can get together, like other groups do, and come up with some ideas that would better fit what we need to do. Because, for instance, when we say we're not monolithic, we're thinking in 1,000 different directions. If you think about it, these other groups, say like the European, they have these John Birch societies and other kind of organizations that
right.
they go away yearly to make plans as to what they're going to do in concert with each other. They're not monolithic.
That's right.
They just have to
That's
know what
right.
they're going to do. Well, the Jewish people, they have B'nai Brit and all those organizations that allow them to come together. We have nothing. We just kind of scattered. And that's why I emphasize so seriously the expert versus the amateur. Because we need
Right.
our experts in those areas to bring us together to kind of iron out all this stuff that has been put into our brain by other folks.
Right. Like the symbolism that we see and people tell us it doesn't matter. Then
Right.
it doesn't, like what I'm speaking about specifically, when you see the picture of Christ and he's a
Mm-hmm.
white man
Mm-hmm.
with blue eyes,
Yeah.
that doesn't make any sense geographically
No, not at all.
for him to look like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they tell us, oh, what difference does it make? It's about the heart.
Yeah,
It
well,
is.
it is.
But the symbolism has a lot to do with the mindset or the
Exactly.
heart set
And
as
then
well.
I tell everybody, well, if it doesn't matter, just tell the truth. If he's
Right,
green,
exactly.
what's the problem? If it really doesn't
Right.
matter, apparently it matters. Because if it
It
doesn't
matters.
matter, just tell the truth. If he's from Africa
Right.
as an African, just tell it. If he's from Europe and Europe, tell it, but tell the
Right.
truth. So it does matter. So when people use that statement, it doesn't matter. They don't even know what they're saying. It matters.
Right.
Because God, first of all, God does not do anything haphazardly.
Right.
Whatever he did was for a reason or purpose. And if he born in Africa, came out of Africa, we were his first creation, and everything else came from, it matters.
It matters. Just tell the
Mm-hmm.
truth. Just,
Yeah, yeah.
the one of the things that even with our young people,
Mm-hmm.
um, the symbolism of like even like when why they're trying to take away um like our history.
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember growing up, like in classrooms, and it would be like, well, where are you from?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I remember, you know, I would
Yeah.
always stand up. You know where this is, Little Kelly, North
Yeah.
Carolina.
I heard that too. Oh, I'm from North Carolina. I'm from the Georgia. Please.
But the other folks would be like Italy.
Yeah.
They would be naming countries,
Countries.
and I remember thinking, like, I mean, like, it's almost like we didn't have a past
Right.
because we had no idea
Mm-hmm.
where we were from. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
we could think of is slave ships
Right.
or
Exactly.
slavery. And
Yeah.
that symbolism
Mm-hmm. It's
sets in our
powerful.
hearts and minds and says to us, we're nobody.
We're nobody.
Like we have no
No
beginning, we have
relevancy.
no history.
Yeah.
And so when we start seeing young people, without purpose and this
Yeah.
and that, a lot of it comes from the fact that there is no history there
Yes.
because we see almost on a daily basis the the pride that comes into students' faces when they begin to learn about Africa,
Oh
when
yes.
they begin to learn about the warriors, the
Mm-hmm.
the women warriors and the inventions and the
That you were
things
somebody other than a slave.
other than a slave. Because the one thing and the one thing that they don't realize is that they were because we asked this question. Well, what do you think the people were doing before they were enslaved? And they were like, oh, it kind of stumps them because
Yeah.
they never thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to remember, they had families, they
Yeah.
had jobs, they
Yeah.
were they were they were moving in a society just like we're moving in a society.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what happens is, through the years, they've dehumanized us.
Mm-hmm. They still started
Yeah,
that when they brought us over across the Middle
right,
Passage. That
right,
was the intent because I tell everybody, it just didn't start in here. They're demonizing us. Those
right,
those scientists, well heeled scientists from some of the best university,
right,
put out that lie before they left Africa. See, that's how they
right.
knew who we were and how to bring us over here to build this country because they knew what we were capable of, and they are the one that spread the lie that we were inhuman, that we was nothing, that we was nobody. And so by the time we got over here, it was just almost already done. And then after the enslavement, and the brutality, and as I said, the stripping, which we gotta understand. We gotta start really zero in on the different. We're uniquely different from any other group of people that ever been
Absolutely.
because we were stripped. That's what made things different. And once you stripped of everything, and then got to recap And not that they gave us anything to help us recap. We just been dogged ever since. And so we don't even know the greatness of us. But if we know our history, if we read our history, we would have to start thinking, well, then what happened? What happened
Right.
at the point when we were snatched and brought over here to those that time when we built the pyramids, that time when we created, we were the greatest scientists, that time when we built societies, that time, just start making those connections and you'll see
Right.
that we need something other than us believing the hype. You know, we need to create narratives around true narrative. Because
Right.
truth crushed to the earth, I do believe that. I think uh, uh, Dr. Martin Luther King recited that expression all the time: "Truth crushed to the earth will rise again." And I
That's right.
always cite the scripture that says, "My people will perish for lack of knowledge."
Of
And I
knowledge. That's right.
interpret that to me true knowledge, because we have a lot of
Definitely.
knowledge going on, a lot of
Right.
information that's not true.
Information. Right.
But we need true knowledge, and otherwise we will perish. Well, we see what's happening now with this orange man up there in the White House. But so I thank God that we have come to a point, and we are standing now and walking the trails of our ancestors, that we know more than we knew then how to handle what we
Right.
being
Absolutely.
confronted with.
I mean, we have one of our seminars that we do for schools.
Mm-hmm.
We use, we teach them how when you dehumanize someone,
Mm-hmm.
you could care less about anything that happens to them.
Right.
And that's what has happened for even white Americans because we have been dehumanized in their eyes. So they
Mm-hmm.
and we use one thing that we use is we use Simba, we use the Lion King, and we
Mm-hmm.
show them how if you humanize even a lion,
Mm-hmm.
then you begin to have empathy for a lion. You
Right.
begin to feel well for what happens to the lion. You begin to people cried in the Lion King because of what happened to it happened within the story because
Mm-hmm.
we humanized it.
Right.
But for African Americans, we've been dehumanized.
Yes.
So therefore, people, it's like whether it be conscious or unconscious, it's like you don't really have empathy for ants
Right.
or a fly,
Mm-hmm.
because there's nothing human about it. But even when you do a story and call it Ant Man,
Mm-hmm.
and you
You
humanize
humanize
him,
it. Mm-hmm.
you begin to have empathy for the Ant Man.
Right. Yeah.
So, so therefore, it has to be shown that we have to humanize
Yes.
who we are
Yeah.
because they took that away. And so what happens with even our white students, they begin to see that the narrative that they've been taught
Oh yes.
about who we are, what we do, we weren't running around in jungles
Right.
and waiting to be captured. When they began to see the magnificence
Mm-hmm.
of where we came from and the magnificence of Africa today,
Yes.
that the world's most resources come from Africa. When they begin to see these things, they begin to see humans.
Yes.
They begin to see people, and that's important. So I don't want to say this generation is done, but it's important that we begin to educate the the generations coming forth because that's what they're trying to do.
Yes.
They're thinking about their grandkids
Yes.
and what kind of country they want their grandkids to grow up in.
Yeah. It is necessary that we do. We got to grab these young folks. One of the things that I'm doing here at this podcast, I'm trying to bring on young people who will take over where we, leave off. We have walked the roots of our ancestors, and they left some pretty good path. They did what they
Right.
did more than what the history tells us, because we know there were insurrections that they're not talk about. They
Right.
gave their life for us to be able to the extent that I'm from that silent generation. So I know just a little bit more about a lot of things than maybe the generations now, because they didn't vicariously know about it. They may, but they did. I know personally about it. You know, from
Right.
the pre-integration days, if there was any integration, we
Right.
knew what it was about. And we
Exactly.
also knew, coming through the civil rights era, we knew how we fought. We know how things was done. We know how the Panthers fought. We know that
That's right.
we were people who have fought to the extent that we could. We are in a
That's right.
lot better position now, thank God. And I tell people they need to continue to listen to the black voices. I don't even
That's right.
listen to that other stuff anymore. Listen to the black voice. Listen to the ministers now. I'm just so impressed with all the ministers that got all kinds of understanding and giving it to their parishioners. They're not backing down. They're not punking out now, because they see
That's
the
right.
necessity of us trying to get ourselves where we need to be to confront what's coming after us. Because, see, unlike before, which we fought, but we didn't have the advantage because we was always sort of isolated into this area or that they can point their fingers and come get us. We're so
Right.
intermixed and intermingled with things now. We're in the army. We're in the armed forces. We're in the
Right.
government. We're in the police department. We're in this and that. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them to just come
Yes.
grab us. And we're not going to let, you know.
Absolutely.
So we are in a different position now. We need to understand that and accept that and respect that. Yeah, but I again back to you in Africa. When are you planning to go back, and what are your plans there?
I plan on returning. I think at this point it's going to be sometime in August.
Okay.
Um, I mean, not the Africana Institute, the Amistad Commission of New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they're having their summer institute. Um, and we're planning on doing some things for them where they bring teachers in the summertime. They bring teachers together
Mm-hmm.
and give them seminars on different things in history. So we plan on doing something where we're going to do some virtual things with the teachers,
Mm-hmm.
so they can now be able to teach um, history. They
Right.
can be able to have a more of a knowledge of African history.
Mm-hmm.
They can, because no one ever asks, or we've never asked the perspective of the African
Right.
when it comes down to, even when it comes to slavery.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we've never asked, how did this affect you?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did it affect your communities
Yes.
when, when your men and women and children were taken?
Just snatched
What were
away
the
from us.
results of this?
Yeah.
There are no studies
Right.
that out there, or I don't know of any, I should say,
Mm-hmm.
that state the devastation of the African, because they act as if there wasn't a civilization. They act
Right.
like there wasn't a society that was devastated by um by slavery.
Yeah.
And then I'm not even talking about those that were taken.
Yeah. The
I'm
one that
talking
was
about those
there.
that were left
Yeah.
behind. It's just
Colonizing
like,
us.
if we think about it,
Mm-hmm.
if right now, if people, well, I shouldn't even say we have to think about it because it's happening,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
where people are being snatched
Yeah.
from families.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, I mean, think about it. People are being snatched from families.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's causing those in the family or other families to begin to hide.
Yeah. Devastating.
So they can't carry on their normal
Mm-mm.
lives because they're afraid of being snatched. Like, just like what's going on in this country
Right
right
today.
now
Right today.
was
Let me
going
just do
on
this for a
then.
moment, Daryl. I want to recognize my crew, my villagers. Otherwise, they may not come again. Rashida Johnson and Chester. Hello, my beautiful queen. And Chester Janice Heiser. Good afternoon from North Carolina. Robbie Cabbage Talk. We are watching. Mayor Watts. Good job, Sister Ruby. Sheila Bird. Good afternoon. Villagers. Lloyd Shivers. Good afternoon, family. Sheila Bird. Joy Jackson from California. Dina Wifton, Dina Robinson, my Wheezy, I call you. Good evening, Ruby. I guess I'm listening. And Joy Jackson again. Juanita McClure. Assalamu alaikum. Walter Shivers on deck from California, and just a very informative. I just appreciate you guys when you call in and support us like this, because this is what it's all about. We got to get the
Yes.
message through. And you see who I bring on. I bring on folks who will inform us. I tell you, when I say I'm an unapologetic amateur looking for experts, I bring on these folks who we're going to get together. Because it's not just a one man type of thing. It's like any other scientific thing we're trying to get to the bottom of. We have to get folks who know those particular subject matters and to get together on
Right.
and try to create solutions, because as I said before, we have folks who have uh, identified, have sort of diagnosed, but I don't know anyone who have come up with a cure. That's what you call the total expertise of what I'm trying to bring forth. We need that, because we can continue to think that we are the least of the least when we see that we're behind in everything. We got to have an explanation. You can't just imagine, I would know that. Why would I know that? It's just like I make analogies about this virus that came through. Uh, 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 Daryl, I use analogies, try to get to. I said, when that virus came through, it hit us so terribly that we didn't know which end was up. We know that there was too many people dying. We know there were over 2 million over a short period of time, but we didn't know the ins and out of it. But what we didn't know that we shouldn't go to a celebrity just because he was a celebrity. We know that we didn't need to go to a sports figure. We know we didn't need to go. What we knew right away, we needed to go to someone who we consider had expertise in that area. Now, if you think about our situation, it's so unusual. Ours is uniquely different from anyone else, and that's because of the stripping. So we need to treat it the same. We need to have people specializing in. First of all, I always say it's going to take three type. It's going to take the faith-based person, but the one who really know who we are, where we came from, how we got here, and it's going to take the historian, the one that thoroughly knowledgeable about who we are from the beginning to now, and the psychologist, because we're going to need to know what that did to us, what all those things have done to us to make us come out the way we are, some of us. So we need those three elements to bring us together to study like you would study any major catastrophe. And once we understand that, we're going to be on our way to redemption. Because we're going to know then that it's not us. You remember I wrote the book I talk about, well, I'm going to show you this book that I wrote. This is my first book, Verbal Healing. We must reject tired, trite, tasteless, and other nonsensical expression that keep us damaged. But we can't reject them if we don't know why we got them in the first place. And on the back of the book, Daryl, you're talking about the slave dungeon. I was standing. Say Ruby in a former slave dungeon on Goree Island. I was standing there in West Africa, standing in the infamous door of no return, which represents the beginning of the African grief in North America. Thought we were not going to return, but we are returning. And I just want to say again, just let me do this right quickly, because my producers say, Ruby, you can't forget. Now, you all know it's take effort to come and do this program every week, So if you could enjoy this program by listening to BKS1 Radio or seeing me in person on Facebook or YouTube, you can bless this program by sending a donation to Cash App, $ Ruby Shiver, Zelle, Ruby Shivers 158, and gmail.com. And I so appreciate those of you who have already done that. I won't forget you. I appreciate you because many of you have, and I thank you so much for it. Daryl, do you have any last information for us?
I I mean, the last thing I would say is let us continue to do our part in
Yes,
educating our kids on our history. Let us continue to show our kids of who we are and where we come from.
yes.
It and like I said, it could be the smallest thing, but the smallest thing can mean a lot.
Mean an
And
awful lot.
looking forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, yes,
And
definitely.
just looking forward to you know there is what's going on,
Hmm.
but we're not defeated.
No, we're never defeated.
We're but this is it may be a challenge, but we've overcome each and every time, and we'll
Exactly.
overcome this time.
Yeah. And not only will we survive, we're going to thrive. We know that for a fact. I thank all you all for joining me today. I love you, my villagers. Just go back and relax and thank God for the message that was brought to us here today. Daryl, I always appreciate you. Next time you get to Africa, I may be on the wings of that plane. Oh, no,
And
Millennium. I don't know about that. But in any
come
in
on in the
any,
plane and sit with me.
in any case, I appreciate you, my brother. God bless.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Mhm.